The Dyslexic Hustle is an account of my journey with dyslexia and business. For most of my life, I have struggled with insecurity. I've overcome that more in recent years, but I'll give you two examples of my childhood which really embedded kind of a sense of insecurity in my life. For one, I played baseball growing up and we did a fundraiser. And part of that fundraiser is we raised money and they got to do a commercial, but we, the teenagers, had to record the commercial. I went into a recording studio to record the commercial, think much about it ahead of time because I'd never been in that situation. And then I realized kind of what I'm doing here, but with no experience, someone wrote a script for me and then I was expected to read it back. Problem with that is I couldn't read. And so other kids had gone before me. Luckily, I was in a room by myself with another adult who I respected, and he realized there was a problem, not knowing that I was dyslexic, but he found out very quickly that something was going on because I was crying, I was very upset, and I couldn't read the script that he had given me. So he did what my son often does when we do these videos. He actually fed each line to me and we broke it down in really nice bite-sized pieces. But one thing to keep in mind, I was like 12 years old. So there was a lot of insecurity, a lot of embarrassment, and that really carries with you when you have those types of experiences at a young age. Another thing that happened often is when we had substitute teachers come in. Most of my teachers, because we went to a small school, were very aware. They made accommodations for me. But when a substitute teacher would come in, they weren't always familiar with what needed to be done. And that was also a difficult situation. But luckily in those situations, I had really good friends and other people that would step up and help me kind of navigate those. So dealing with insecurities has always been something that's been top of mind. And these feelings even came up to the top, even more so when I began to have a family. When we found out that my wife was pregnant with my firstborn, my son, I was very nervous about it. Turned out he wasn't dyslexic, but a couple years later, when my daughter was born, she actually was dyslexic. So one of the things that I worked on personally was just being more transparent about dyslexia because I never wanted her to feel insecure the way that I did. And I obviously didn't want her seeking validation in unhealthy ways. Luckily, my wife is very organized and very capable, and she sought out how to best educate our kids. She homeschooled both of them, and she was able to tailor the curriculum and the learning style to teach them exactly the way that they needed to be taught so that they could excel academically. Now, if you were to engage with my daughter, she can read. In fact, she reads to me now. We do stories together and stuff like that. So most people would not even recognize that she's dyslexic based on the teachings and the curriculums that she's gone through. For years, resources for dyslexia were very scarce. They were hard to find. Luckily, I had great support around me. My wife was fantastic. She would get paperwork and she would fill it out before I go to the doctor, or even within my business, she was always behind the scenes, making sure I had everything I needed and also making sure that just things flowed well. Today, it's hard to imagine what that would look like because we have technology. I remember the first time that I got exposed to an iPad. I was at a lunch with a friend and the iPad had just come out. He started showing me things and I almost cried because they showed me how I could read. They showed me also how I could speak. Dragon Dictation was a native app on the iPad. Now it's just built into every keyboard, which is incredible. So even early on with the iPad, it was the features were there, but they were kind of clunky and they were hard to navigate. Now it's very streamlined, very easy to use. Special appreciation and thanks to Apple for how great they've integrated technology in these resources into their devices. The computer, the iPhone, the iPad, all of these devices make it so much easier to navigate life. Simple things that a lot of times people don't think about. Reading a menu in a restaurant was very difficult. Honestly, when I would go to a restaurant when I was younger, I would just order the same thing. I'd get a chicken salad or chicken Caesar salad every time. I would just order the same thing because I couldn't read the menu. So super thankful for Apple, how they've been just inclusive with how they built their technology. And so very thankful for that. The context behind the Dyslexic Hustle can be found in these stories. My goal is to take dyslexia from being a disadvantage to an advantage for business and in education. I would love to be able to give the resources and the information needed to help kids and adults overcome dyslexia.